This is OuweSok, and in this video I'm going to be talking to you about Battle Brothers. Battle Brothers is a game that already exists for many years, but I only started playing like half a year ago. That's when I discovered this game, and I've been playing it a lot since then. Because Battle Brothers exists for many years already, there's a lot of content you can find on the internet, a lot of videos you can find on YouTube. I can recommend to you the channels of Feeding Friendly, of Filthy Robot, Carve a Hole, Deductor. These are my favorite Battle Brothers content creators available on YouTube, so check out their videos. What I've been missing in their content or haven't been able to find anywhere is a tier list of the enemies that are in the game. So that's what I will be doing today, and I'll also be giving some pointers about when I think you should be able to take this fight in the game at the earliest opportunity, whether you should fight this enemy at all, if the loot is interesting to you, and what it is that you can do with it. So a general overview of, let's say, the Battle Brothers enemies. I'll be having a small PowerPoint presentation as well to provide some extra information, background on this specific enemy. So the 5 categories that I'll be using in the tier list are the S category. It's the enemy that I will search for on the map. It's the enemy that I happily lose one day traveling to find a group of this enemy and find them, because their loot is really valuable to me. The 8 category is for the fight that I will take anytime. If I see a group of these enemies roaming the map, I will stop what I'm doing and I will take the fight, because their loot is quite good for me, and I really like to fight this enemy. The B category is for your basic run-of-the-mill everyday fight that you basically do to gain money, to gain crowns, to sell their loot. It's not specifically positive for you, neither negative. It's just your standard run-of-the-mill fight. The C category is for the crappy fights, so doesn't provide a good loot to you, for not a good return on your investment of effort and time, so you prefer to fight other enemies. And the D category is for the enemies that you just really try to dodge, because it's way too high risk, it's high variance, and the rewards are just not compensating for the risks. So let's start with the Brigand Thug. If you would grade the Brigand Thug on days 1, 2, 3, it would be S category for sure, but they fall off really quickly after that, so for me these are category A. They are crucial for your early game development, and they fall off really quickly after that, as you want to move up to Brigand Raiders as soon as possible. Raiders, straight up in the S category, they are very important for you during almost the entire game. They have a good range of weapons, good armor until 110, 140 helmet. I especially like the 105 helmet of 5 fatigue, which is quite efficient and very good on your Nimble Brothers. The weapon that I would like to point at is the long axe. That's the only weapon that Raiders have that you cannot upgrade in any way. So all the other weapons have upgrades available that you can find from tougher enemies. To find your first group of raiders, you want to have thug gear, you want to have daggers and knives so you can puncture them down for their armor and helmet. You want to have the numeric advantage both in number of brothers as well as in ranged brothers, so that they come to you rather than you have to come to them. Raiders remain relevant during almost the entire game, because later in the game they come with friends. The marksmen don't bring you anything, but Brigand Raiders are very nice enemies with really good armor, really good helmet, and potentially very good weapons for you. And even later in the game they come with sword masters, hedge knights, master archers, which can bring to you weapons that you don't already have. Knights can bring you knight gear, so that's very good if you find a party of Brigand Raiders. With a hedge knight you will be fist pumping and taking the fight very happily. Sword masters bring you decent gear, but they also bring you a very tough fight. So for sword master I would really recommend you to have some throwing nets available, some ranged weapons, because they are really hard to take down with melee only. Master Archer can provide to you a heavy crossbow or a warbow, which is very nice. And if you're unhappy to fight a Necromancer, then it means that the fight will be a lot tougher to you without really getting any benefit. So hopefully you don't find too many of those. If your party has moved up and is carrying raider gear, at some point in the game you want to be attacking nobles as well. The supply caravans with footmen and billmen, like 5 to 7 footmen or billmen, are really good parties to attack when you have raider gear. So for me these are between A and B. I would put them in B, because the problem with attacking supply caravans is that it will have diplomatic consequences. You don't want to spoil your relations with everybody on the map, but maybe have a specific site that you can bully, or specific towns that are not very valuable to you that you can attack the supply caravans. But attacking supply caravans allows you to slightly upgrade your armor, massively upgrade helmets, and also to get your first kite shields and heater shields, which are difficult to get outside of noble fights. And the billmen can bring to you bill hooks, which are very, very good upgrade for your reach guys. Later in the game you'll be able to find very big noble parties with tri-handers, sergeants, arbalesters. If you want to fight such a big party, you obviously need very strong team already. But to be able to attack supply caravan with the average of 4 footmen, 2 billmen, you should be able to do that with a team of 12 brothers, level 4 to 5. You should be able to deal with them quite nicely. The next human fight are mercenaries. These I would like to fight anytime. They would be an S category if not for the diplomatic repercussions of attacking them. It will always piss off or an entire faction or a specific town. So anytime I find a mercenary group and doesn't have too much of a diplomatic repercussion, I will attack them, because they bring really nice armor. They bring up to 230 helmets, which is like the same you can get from nobles, so that's not too impressive. But they come potentially with very nice two-handed weapons that you cannot get elsewhere. So for example, the Bardies you can get from mercenaries. And mercenaries will probably also be your first opportunity to get a warbow for free. If you fight mercenaries, bring throwing nets to pin them down, bring reliable tanks so that you can pin down a mercenary that you want to puncture later, and make sure that you have the numeric advantage so that you can use surround bonuses against them. Really good fight, and these are important fights for you to upgrade your raider gear. Let's go to the north. The Barbarian Thrall, which is the northern equivalent of the Thug. For me, I don't like them that much. They're the basic fight. Their gear is basically crap, and they are much more dangerous than thugs because of a couple of tricks that they have. They have throwing weapons, which are quite nasty in the early game. They have rotate and they have adrenaline, so they're quite more dangerous than thugs. But at some point in the game I want to go north and fight thralls and farm their throwing gear, because throwing gear is very valuable to me. I like to have throwers in my backline, and thralls are a really good source for throwing weapons, so that's why I put them in the B category. The big brother of the Barbarian Thrall is the Reaver. These go straight into the S category for me, because I absolutely adore Barbarian throwing gear. The javelins, heavy javelins, the heavy throwing axes are excellent. One of the best weapons in the game. And I will fight hundreds of Reavers to complete the collection of heavy throwing gear, so that I can phase out my normal javelins and throwing axes. Also in the earlier game, their two-handed weapons can be useful to you. They're tough enemies. If you are comfortable fighting raiders, you should be able to fight reavers. If the raider fight is still tough to you, then maybe you should avoid them for a while. Against Barbarians, the Spiked Impaler, especially against Barbarian two-handers, the Spiked Impaler is a really good weapon to throw them back one spot and delay, basically have them skip a turn. So that's a really good weapon against Barbarian Reavers. The next are the Barbarian Chosen. For me, these are your basic fight. You'll be fighting Chosen a lot. Their gear is very valuable. It brings in a lot of crowns. And if you don't have it already, you can get the Tier 3 Cleaver, the Rusty Warblade, and the Heavy Rusty Axe if you don't already have great axes. Very comparable, these two weapons. Very good. But most of the time you will be fighting them to sell their gear. Later in the game, when you have the Bounty Hunter, the Chosen champions are really interesting to you because they bring named cleavers, axes, helmets, and armor. The named hammers and maces are not that impressive, but can still be slightly better than your basic hammers and maces. Again, the Spiked Impaler is a weapon that you would like to use against Barbarian Chosen. I would like my brothers to be like level 7 or 8 before fighting a decent group of Barbarian Chosen. They are very dangerous enemies. Let's move to the south. The Nomad Cutthroat, the southern equivalent of the Thug. For me, this is a crappy fight. They are tougher than Thugs, and they don't bring any good gear really. So I don't see any reason to fight them in the early game. And after the early game, their gear is just basically not relevant to you anymore. Maybe the Adaga shields, which can be used for as long as you don't have kite shields. But for the rest, it's not that impressive what you get from Cutthroats. Next are the Nomad Outlaws. For me, these are your basic fight. They bring a couple of weapons that are unique, that you cannot get from Raiders. The Pole Mace primarily is a really good weapon to use on your quick hand Mace brothers. The two-handed Scythe is a really good cleaver for the early game, and you will only replace it when you get to the Barbarian Cleaver or the two-handed Scimitar. But it's really good to fight zombies in the early game. The battle whip is of course very useful to disarm, and Ardaga and Sipar Shields have their uses. Sipar Shields are tough, very good against Barbarians, very good against Orcs. Nomads later in the game bring their friends, just like Brigand Raiders. So Nomad Leaders can provide you with Tier 3 weapons and up to 200 armor and helmets. They can also come with very nasty enemies. The Desert Stalker, Nomad Executioner, Blade Dancer and Assassin are tough enemies that bring to you potentially really good weapons. You really want to bring throwing nets to deal with Executioners, Blade Dancers and Assassins to pin them down and concentrate fire on them. Javelins and heavy javelins are pretty good because their melee defense is very strong. And against the Blade Dancers and Assassins you can use poison, because I don't think they have resilient, so that would be quite useful against them. Next are the Southern Conscripts. That's a fight that I dodge in the game. There's not too much in it for me. I don't need their gear, I don't need their mail or helmets. The sword lance and the handgun can be nice, but it's easier to buy. I prefer to remain friends with the South, because fighting conscripts means you are at war with the city-states. And I like the city-states for their trading possibilities. I like the city-states for the arena. I like it for the alchemist to buy potions. So I prefer to remain friends with the South, and therefore I don't fight conscripts. These were all the human enemies, so let's move on to the goblins. The Goblin Wolf Rider for me is your basic fight. The gear that you get from them is not too impressive, usually for selling maybe a couple of goblin spears for your tanks. But the fight is fairly easy and good experience. Killing a wolf rider gives you the same experience as killing a nomad outlaw, for example. So it's a fight that you will happily take, and it's not too difficult. The same goes for the typical sharp shooter, ambusher, and skirmisher fight. They're not too tough, the enemies. Their gear is not very interesting. The most interesting weapon you can get from goblins is the jagged pipe, which is excellent enemy. Excellent weapon. Excellent against in the Kraken fight. Excellent against Unal. Excellent against lindworms. It's a really nice reach weapon with polearm mastery built in, using only 5 EP for the attack. It's a really flexible weapon. Later in the game, when you get Bounty Hunter, you can find a lot of famed goblin items. Goblin skirmishers and ambushers can both be champions, so you will be able to get a lot of famed goblin weapons, and some of them will be upgrades to your existing weapons. You can find goblin spears that are better than fighting spears. You can find goblin swords that are better than noble swords. You can even find goblin bows that do more damage to the enemy than warbows. A warbow does 50 to 70 damage, so that's an average of 60. 35% of penetration, so that's an average of 21 damage to the enemy. You can find goblin bows that do more than 21 damage on average to the enemy through their armor, so watch out for them, as it provides an upgrade to your warbows. I think my record is 4 champion goblins in a camp of 22, so that was fun. Can be very profitable to fight goblins, to fight their champions. Goblin Overseer, I'll take them on anytime. I really like the Spiked Impaler. I already expressed how useful it is against barbarians, against two-handers in general, so also Zweihander, against fallen heroes. It's a really good weapon to throw them back, make them lose a turn, so anytime I see a goblin camp with a goblin overseer, I will try and attack it. That does not count for the Goblin Shaman. That's a fight that I really dislike. He brings nothing to you. The Gnarly Staff doesn't serve any purpose. And he's just really annoying with his rooting ability and the insect ability. So that's a fight I try to avoid. If I find the Goblin camp with a Shaman, then I think, okay, I will get back later and see if there's another company defending the camp, and hopefully without a Shaman. But if you have to fight a Shaman, then it might be a good idea to fight at night and give your ranged people a Night Owl elixir, so that the Goblin Shaman spends a lot of his AP giving night vision to other goblins, rather than using it to rooting you down or sending you a swarm of insects. Next are the Orcs. Orc Young, that's really another of your basic fights. You're in it for the money, you don't really need their gear, you already have everything what you need. You should be able to take them on. If you can find raiders, fight raiders, you can fight Orc Young. And basically for selling the Orc weapons, which are quite valuable, it's like 250 gold per weapon. That's really nice. Against Orc Young, with their stun ability, you can make very good use of Indomitable and of the Orc Trophy to avoid being stunned. Next up is the Orc Berserker. That's interesting. This is the Orc Berserker, I think. It's an interesting fight. If I find a camp of just Orc Berserkers, for me they are anytime. I'll take this anytime. These are not very difficult, this fight, because Orc Berserkers die pretty quickly to your ranged weapons, and you can keep them at bay with spears and spear wall. So a camp with just Orc Berserkers, I will take them on anytime. But Orc Berserkers, when they are fighting together with Orc Young and together with Orc Warriors, then they become more like a B type of enemy. But just Berserkers, you should be able to take it on really early. And they come with strange mushrooms. That's a really fun item, and that can be used in many fights for specifically your backliners. So yeah, that's always a good catch if you kill a couple of Berserkers and find some mushrooms. Whips for disarm is really good against Orc Berserkers. They're quite easy to disarm. Next come the Orc Warriors. These are quite tough, but not as dangerous as Berserkers. So again, I put them in the basic category. I'm okay with fighting them. By the time you're fighting Orc Warriors, you really want to have tanks with Indomitable, so you can keep them pinned down and you don't get pushed away. Whips are good to disarm them. Goblin Poison is good to reduce their AP and allow them only one action. So if you fight a big big Orc camp, you might use Goblin Poison on your two-handers, so that in your 1v1 fights against Orc Warriors, they are, let's say, handicapped. It's very useful to use Goblin Poison for this. Next up is the Orc Warlord. Doesn't bring you anything that the other orcs don't bring, so I prefer to avoid him. So he's like C/D category. That's a primary target for your throwing nets. You will need a good sergeant as well to counter his yelling and his ability to lower the morale of your team. Again, you want to have tanks with Indomitable and multiple shields, because they like to bash shields, and whips to disarm. As far as I know, the Warlord is not resilient, so Goblin Poison would be very useful against him. Goblin Warriors are resilient, but you still get 3 uses out of Goblin Poison, so it remains useful against also both Warlord as warriors, but more effective against Warlords. So these are the greenskins. Let's move on to the Undead. The Wiedergänger, the standard Wiedergänger. Really easy to kill, not very dangerous. Their gear is crap, so you will take them fight just to complete contracts or defeat camps, and there's not much really that you get from this fight. When I go into a fight with Undead, with Wiedergängers, I never bring shields. I need the fatigue, and I like the double grip bonus. And since they're not dangerous, I don't mind having lower defenses. The Armored Wiedergänger, also for me, they are into B category. They are quite a bit tougher than the normal Wiedergänger, but they also bring better gear. So you can get up to 150 armor. You can get kettle hats from them, which will be upgrades to your radar gear. So it can be useful fight in the beginning. And you can identify the Wiedergänger that have these items and maybe try and dagger them down, which gives you, I think, about a 50% possibility that this item drops. Moving up, we go Fallen Heroes. I like Fallen Heroes. They bring excellent weapons, tier 3 weapons potentially. So you can get a great axe from them, a winged mace, two-handed flail, which is a very scary weapon in the hands of a fallen hero, really, because of its additional percentage to hit. So make sure that you deal with a fallen hero that has a two-handed flail very quickly. They also have very strong armor and helmets. It's not very useful for humans because it's way too heavy. It's like 20-25% too heavy compared with normal gear. But it can be a stopgap for your bros, for the ones that have a lot of fatigue to spend. So you can carry it for a while before you find something better, something lighter. Whips are good against them to disarm them, and if you want to dagger them down, throwing nets to delay them, and spiked impalers also pretty good to throw them back and delay their arrival. Yeah, Fallen Heroes, I like them. Something that cannot be said about Guists. These are horrible enemies, bring nothing to you, and they can really screw you over with their ability to lower morale. So fighting them, you really want a good sergeant. The best weapon against them is melee, of course, because any kind of ranged weapon only has 5% possibility to hit. Whips are really good, so you can hit them from 3 range. Dogs are really good against them. And if you manage to get into melee range with a Guist, then the very best weapon you can have is the 3-handed flail. So for example, if your unit has like 50% to hit a Guist, the 3-handed flail will convert that into 87.5%, which is quite amazing. But yeah, you cannot avoid fighting Guist because they come together with Wiedergängers, but yeah, I quite hate them. So if they are in the party, they are a priority kill for you. Necromancers, again, I hate them. They don't bring anything to you, and possessed enemies are quite dangerous. Possessed fallen heroes are even more dangerous, and possessed fallen heroes with 2-handed flails are extremely scary. So when I'm fighting necromancers, I like to bring whips to disarm possessed brothers, possessed enemies. I bring cleavers to finish off the Wiedergängers and make sure that they cannot be revived. And I bring maces and pole maces to stun the possessed enemies, which is a very good counter against possessing. The only thing good that you can say about necromancers is that speedrunners like to use them for experience farming. So in a single fight you can level up your brothers various levels just by killing revived zombies for like 200 rounds or 1000 rounds in one fight. It's a nice cheese to quickly upgrade your brothers. Next we go to the Undead. The Ancient Undead. The Ancient Auxiliary is an enemy that you can take on pretty early in the game. If you don't have Raider gear already, you can get the 95 helmet, which is quite useful. But the Undead weapons are generally not that great. So for me, it's your basic fight. You're in it for the money. You basically sell the gear that you're getting, and they're not too easy. They're not too difficult a fight. If possible, you would already have a sergeant available in this fight because of their fearsome. They can lower your morale of your brothers. And you need your sergeants to counter that. Bring maces, hammers and axes, and leave your spears at home when fighting the Ancient Undead. The next is the Ancient Legionary. Again, for me, that's your basic fight. You're in it for the money. You don't really need their gear. Maybe you can use a couple of their bladed pikes, which are comparable to normal pikes if you don't have enough reach weapons. But basically, you will sell their gear because it's quite inefficient for you to wear. Good weapons against Ancient Undead are throwing axes, heavy throwing axes, especially handguns are good. And to be able to deal with the spikes, with the nasty pikes from Undead, you really want high melee defense brothers with 35% or more, 35 defense or more, and tanks that can taunt and distract the pikers, the pikemen from attacking your more vulnerable melee brothers. Next up are the Ancient Onog. This is a really awesome looking enemy, really intimidating. I really like how their appearance. So one of my favorite enemies, and I put them again in B category. I probably don't need their weapons. If you don't have a tier 3 cleaver from the Barbarians or the 2-handed scimitar, you can make use of the crypt cleaver. The war scythe can be useful because of its unique abilities to AoE. But most of the time you'll be selling their gear, and their gear is really highly valuable. So a couple of Ancient Onogards bring thousands of crowns into your treasury. This is an enemy that you can use strange mushrooms on your backliners with witch weapons, and keep them out of the range of the Ancient Undead, and get 25% extra damage. It's very useful for you to use strange mushrooms in this particular fight. The Ancient Priest is one of the bosses, let's say, of the Undead. It's not too dangerous. I put them in category B. I don't really mind the miasma. By the time you're fighting Ancient Priest, your brothers should have plenty of life points and be able to deal with a couple of rounds of miasma. The Horrify is of course annoying. By the time you should already have a good sergeant, you should have the Undead trophy, and you bring anything that improves morale, that improves resolve when you're fighting Ancient Priests. The good thing about Ancient Priest is that there will be always two Ancient Honor Guards that do nothing in the fight until you decide to attack them. So that's the good part of an Ancient Priest. So I don't really mind fighting Ancient Priests, despite that they bring nothing for loot. Necrosavants, these are nasty because your backline is no longer your backline. For me, this is a kind of crappy fight. You need to be really careful with your throwers. You need to be careful with your more vulnerable backliners. You need to be careful with your sergeant. And the weapons they carry, the Kopesh, is not that useful. It's comparable to the military cleaver. The Shimmering Ashes are okay. You need Shimmering Ashes to do the Kraken quest, of course. And you can use it to craft Happy Power, which can be useful, but especially useful if you play the Dovekul Cult Origin. But otherwise, Happy Powder, yeah, it wears off really quickly. Can be useful for, let's say, if you go into the Black Monolith and you give Happy Powder to the tank that goes the northern group. That will be good to make sure that he is confident to start that fight. You can build the protective runes and sigils armor attachment using Shimmering Ashes, which I think is an attachment that I've never built in my 1500 hours of play. Dogs are pretty good against Necrosavants. Necrosavants tend to attack brothers or enemies that are easy to surround. Dogs often go alone, so they are very good at distracting Necrosavants and sometimes even killing Necrosavants if Necrosavants have already used up their 9 lives. All in all, quite a nasty enemy with a specific way to be handling them. So these were all, let's say, the humanoid enemies. Let's move on to the beasts. Your basic beast fights are the Nachtzerer. For me, category B. Again, they are not too difficult. Spears and Spear Wall is very useful against them. Can wear them down, can break their morale. So when your front line, when you can equip the entire front line with spears, you should be able to deal with Nachtzerers. Of course, you never can be really sure about fighting Nachtzerers. It will be easy if you find a group with has a couple of level 3 Nachtzerers that can be tough. But any group of level 1 Nachtzerers, that's a fairly easy fight for your spear-wearing brothers. Next is the Webnet. Webnets I will fight anytime. I really like the Gossamer. I really like throwing nets, so reinforced throwing nets I like even better. I will. If I find Gossamer, I will just never sell it. I will always use it to build improved nets. You can also use it to build the light padding replacement armor attachment, but that will also require you to kill shreds, which is an enemy that we will get to later. The poisoned oil that you can build from the poison gland can be useful against, for example, nimble enemies that are hard to damage, and the poison comes in handy. Or maybe against goblins that a single hit will kill them in due time. Lionheart potion is pretty good potion to improve resolve in certain battles. And the potion of oblivion is a mean potion I just never built. Against Webnets, you don't bring your tanks, you don't bring shields. Spears and Spear Wall can be very useful. And the trick against Webnets is to move back 2, so that in turn 2 you will have your entire front line engaged with Webnets and you can start slaughtering them. Careful with Webnets when fighting them in the forest. That's a much tougher fight. So there are specific contracts that ask you to fight Webnets in the forest. These are very dangerous fights. You will find brothers engaged with potentially 1, 2, or 3 Webnets in turn 1. So that's very dangerous if that is a ranged brother. He will be disabled. So you should really go into these fights with just melee brothers. And I also recommend that all of your melee brothers have at least a reach weapon in their back pocket, because they will sometimes find themselves out of position and be unable to contribute to the fight without a reach weapon. So fighting in the forest, I would really like to have my brothers like level 5 or 6 before I attempt to do that. The direwolf is for me another basic enemy, basic beast fight. I really like the armor attachment. It's another free 15 durability to your armor at no cost, and has also the advantage of bringing down resolve of your enemies, being able to get them fleeing earlier. The adrenaline gland is useful for the second wind potion, which is one of the best potions in the game. The cat potion is not that useful, and the iron will potion also has limited uses in my opinion. You want your brothers to be quite well armored, so you want to have full raider gear when you attack direwolves, because they deal a lot of slashing damage, and they can kill a poorly armored brother in one turn with 3 attacks. Spears and spear wall are quite useful against them, but not that useful, as you will often find yourself to be engaged with direwolves already in turn 1. The adrenaline perk is really good, because then you can outspeed them, and because these fights are really short and like they're over in like 2 or 3 turns, then the loss of fatigue is not that much of an issue. So adrenaline really good against direwolves. Hyenas are very similar to direwolves, but I like them much better as an enemy. I fight them anytime. I like the hyena fur attachment very much. I like it better than the direwolf attachment. You should put the hyena fur in the early game on all your brothers that have dodge, because any dodge brother with a hyena fur gets an additional 2.25 melee defense, 2.25 range defense, besides the plus 15 durability. So that's a really good early game attachment. And hyenas also produce acidic saliva, which can be used to build smoke pots. Smoke pots are really good. I like smoke pots a lot. They make the footwork perk completely obsolete, as you can use smoke pots to evacuate a brother that is in bad shape or in bad position and about to be killed by an engaged enemy. So yeah, that is your emergency button that can be used in many fights. So I like hyenas. They bring really good, really useful loot. The advantage of fighting hyenas over direwolf is as well as that they will never be engaged with you at turn 1. So that will give you time to put up your spear wall. Serpents. These are quite tough fights. Not that good for you. So for me this is an obvious C category. Crappy fights. The glistening scales and serpent skin are not very useful. The flash pot might be okay, also requires you to kill Alps. The large powder bag can be useful to build a couple if you have a couple of gunners in your team, but in general you will just sell their loot. If you fight serpents, especially if they're a big group, then you really need brothers and tanks with underdog, because you find yourself surrounded very quickly by serpents, and a brother without good melee defense might succumb really quickly to serpent attacks. Later in the game these become really fun fights, so you can put your ex-brothers in the middle of serpents and round swing and for some fun. So yeah, later in the game these become easy fights, but earlier, until you have good brothers with good melee defense and the underdog, these are quite tough fights. Alps. I like Alps. It's a really original fight with interesting mechanics. It's not too hard, so I will take them on without problems. Maybe they're even anytime category. What you want is brothers with high life points and resolve. Higher resolve means that they do fewer damage and they are less easy to be put to sleep. You want a good sergeant to fight Alps so that they can wake them up and improve the resolve of your men. And to fight Alps you want reach weapons. So anytime you can equip all your brothers with reach weapons and with some throwing axes, you should be able to take on Alps. Their loot is decently useful. Alp trophies plus 5 resolve are very useful on your weaker resolve brothers. You need a parched skin to build happy powder. The Lionheart potion, as I earlier said, is pretty useful. The cat potion not that useful, and the armor attachment is useless basically, in my opinion. The Night Owl elixir is very useful when fighting goblins. You can fight goblins at night and give it to your ranged brothers. The potion of knowledge is a very good potion. I use it a lot on brothers that I've freshly recruited and that are very promising to get up to speed and get level up quickly. But that also requires, the potion of knowledge also requires you to kill Scrats. So I prefer to buy this potion really in the south. Hexes. Hexes are a nasty fight. They are D category for me. I'm fine in an entire campaign to fight Hexes only once in the Witch Hut Legendary location, and for the rest I try to avoid contracts that involve Hexes. Sometimes you see a group of Hexes with specific enemies roaming the map, then you know exactly what you'll get, and then you might be able to attack them. So maybe if you find a group of 7 with 2 Hexes and 5 Webnets, that's a party you can attack. But basically it's a difficult fight, it's a high variance fight, and it can be really risky, and the rewards are not that great really. So but if you fight Hexes and you get mysterious herbs, then you can build a second wind potion, which is, as I said earlier, one of the best potions in the game. Against them you only want anything that increases resolve. So the Lionheart potion is very useful against them. The Undead trophy is extremely useful, and you would need extremely good sergeant against to fight Hexes. There are various strategies. Some people like to stun their own converted brothers. You can disarm your own converted brothers, but it still remains high variance and not very profitable fight. So D category for sure for me. Ifrits. Ifrits, again, a fight I don't like to take. I don't mind Sulfurous Rocks a lot. Firepots can be decent, but fighting Ifrits for them is not worth it. So usually when I get involved with Ifrits, it is because I allow a group of Ifrits to follow me to a Nomad tent city, or I fight them bringing in an army of conscripts that do the dirty work for me. I don't really like to fight Ifrits unless I really need the money and there's a big contract out for them. But yeah, then I usually try to find an army of conscripts that will help me in this fight. It's you will get out of this fight with a lot of time with injuries, because these level 3 Ifrits do a shit ton of damage when they start throwing out their little brothers. Unal. Unal is an S category fight for me. Absolutely will search and find Unals to fight them for their giant skull and bones, which allow you to craft bone plating, which is a very, very good armor attachment. You want on all your nimble brothers, you want bone plating. It's also good on your on basically every brother. Bone plating is a good armor attachment. The Unal's hide is useful because it allows you to do the Kraken quest. You can improve the sturdiness of your dogs. You can build large quivers, so that's quite useful. The Unal's heart, on the other hand, is only good for selling. I don't build the Apothecary's Miracle because it requires mysterious herbs, which I prefer to use for building second wind potion. And the fermented Unal's heart, I don't think I ever built that. And the Potion of Oblivion for me is a useless meme potion. To fight Unhold, you really want good brothers with strong melee defense. You like to have reach weapons. Jagged pikes are really good against them. Strange mushrooms can come in handy here to do the additional 25% damage. And the most important asset against Unholds are really good tanks, preferably with Indomitables, so they cannot be thrown out of the way. Throwing nets can help you pin them down, and if you have a brother without Indomitable, then it's dangerous to have reach weapons directly behind them. So that's where the jagged pikes come in. You can move in, attack, and move back, so that your brother doesn't get pushed around to reach your backline. The Frost Unhold is even better, so that's like one of the best enemies to fight in the game. The thick white fur is amazing. The Unal Forecloak, additional fur padding are both very, very good armor attachments. So yeah, Frost, Unhold and Unhold are like the best enemies that you can fight. If your party is good enough to fight them, you should take on any kind of roaming group of Unholds that you find. A really good fight for you. A really good upgrade to your armor. Next up are shreds. That's a fight that I prefer to dodge. I don't really need their loot. I don't need the living tree shields. By the time you are able to fight shreds, most of your men will be two-handers, so you don't need shields at all. The Kraken shield, if you want to build it, then sure, kill a couple of shreds. The light padding armor attachment is not something that you will use a lot. You will prefer to have the other armor attachments. Maybe in some exceptional case where you have a brother with heavy armor and with fatigue issues that you want to build the light padding armor attachment. But in general, shreds don't provide very useful loot other than for selling. If you're dealing with shreds, you want to have reliable tanks that can taunt them so that they don't attack your brothers as much. You want really good melee defense, and you want to be able to break their shields very quickly, so Hexes are really the best weapons for that. 200 Hexes. Lindworms. Lindworms are one of the toughest fights in the game, and the loot is not that impressive, so for me they are like in the crappy category. The Lindworm bombs allow you to build a Lindworm shield, but the Lindworm shield is not much better than your standard kite shield. The bone plating armor is good. It's very good actually. It's very good attachment, but not that much better than the other Unhold armor attachments to get you to fight Lindworms. The Lindworm skill cloak, I don't think I've ever used it. I don't find it that useful. I don't see why I should have melee brothers that are immune to acid, because you basically don't ever expose your melee brothers to Lindworms. It's just specifically only your tanks are engaged with Lindworms. And the Lindworm blood allows you to build acid flask, but you can buy these in the south, so why bother? Anytime, if you want to do this ego fight, then you need very reliable tanks to fight Lindworms, and you want reach weapons for everybody, or having throwing weapons, also very good. Handguns can be devastating if you are able to hit 2 or 3 parts of the Lindworm. Smoke pots are good to help a brother that gets in an uncomfortable position. Strange mushrooms again for your reach weapon guys can be very useful for the extra 25 damage. And overwhelmed brothers can help reduce the efficiency of their attacks. Bring jagged pikes, even if you have like Hammer Brother with a pole hammer. Give him a jagged pike in reserve, so that anytime he finds himself not in a position to get a 2 distance from the tail and 3 distance from a head, but he is at, for example, at just 3 distance from a head, he can switch to the jagged pike and do the move, attack, move back routine, and remain safe and be able to contribute to the fight. So jagged pikes are really good if your brothers cannot find the ideal position to beat up on the worms. Last but not least, the Kraken. It's a fight that you will do only once in a game, basically. You want to fight the Kraken in the Legendary location, because otherwise you haven't really finished the campaign. You also want to get the Lightning Sword, the Reproach of the Old Gods, which is a very good weapon. But you don't do it for the loot. The Kraken Blade provides you the Kraken Shield, which is okay shield, so very useful against Goblins, for example. The Home Plate attachment we already discussed is good, but yeah, you don't need as much to be able to fight Krakens for this. And the Potion of Oblivion is a meme potion again. Yeah, only if you have misbuilt a brother you would need to build this. When you fight the Kraken, you really want the Goblin Trophy. The brother that has the Goblin Trophy can also use an Iron Will potion, so that if he gets smacked and injured by a tentacle, he can continue on doing his good work. The pole hammer is the best weapon to bring down the armor of the Kraken. Jagged pikes are extremely useful in this fight. If you are fighting, let's say, in the normal way without the cheese, so you don't do this. You just go in with your entire team, then equip all your people with jagged pikes. That allows you to both use 4 AP to release a brother or release yourself, and have 5 AP to damage a tentacle. Pathfinder I recover extremely useful in this fight, and the second wind potion is like mandatory on all the brothers that don't have recover and or Pathfinder, to make sure that they don't fatigue out because of all this detentacling that is very fatigue intensive. Okay, I think that was all the enemies, 42 enemies we discussed. This is the end result. Let me know in the comments what you think. Do you agree with my choices? You think I misjudged a specific enemy? Feel free to let me know in the comments. Enjoy the game and enjoy your day. Thanks a lot. Bye bye.